I had no idea if there's a meeting today. I lost track of the schedule.
Sorry, Amy. Yeah, we're having the joint steering advocacy meeting today.
Okay.
And do you want me to resend you the agenda so it's on the top?
Nope. No. I just want to make sure I'm in the right place.
You are. You're in the right place, the right time. It's actually going to be a good one. We have a lot of people coming on and some great updates to give. So. Hello, Matt. Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
Thanks. We'll give folks a few more minutes and then we will start. So I had some folks let me know that they couldn't attend and or they might be hopping on a little bit later in the meeting. So it's 12:02 and we will start. Hopefully everyone received the agenda and the Zoom link and got here okay. There were some glitches in the past that we're trying to clean up. My name is Joanne Roberts and I am facilitating the meetings for this initiative. So welcome everyone. One of the things we do is we introduce ourselves and we do a small little icebreaker. And the icebreaker today is, are you an early bird or a night owl when it comes to production of work that you are doing? I would say based on my work as a superintendent, I kind of have to be both because I have my early bird teachers who are looking for information. And then I have my night owls that if I can get to them at night, they can sleep and they're not stressed about getting an answer. Myself, I'm more of an early bird kind of person. So, hi, John. Do you want to do an introduction?
Sure, thanks. I'm John Drew. I'm the Director of Place-Based Learning at Vital Communities and just sort of facilitate things for Joanne. I am definitely a night owl, so I do a lot of good work later in the evening, and that works for me. And early morning meetings are often I'm as present as I can manage.
Good to know. Hi, Andrew. How are you today?
Good. I'm Andrew Dunhauer. I'm the Executive Director of Equal Access to Broadband, and I'm here serving as just a community member, interested in getting affordable, high-quality childcare out into the Upper Valley. I don't know anymore. Since since having a child, almost 12 years ago, who didn't sleep through the night for 4 years, I don't even know anymore. I may not even be a bird of any kind.
I appreciate that. Hi, Amy. How are you today?
I'm here in the right place, so that's good. I'm definitely an earlier person. My brain goes to mush about 4 o'clock.
Great. Hello, Matt. Welcome.
Thank you. Matt Levin, Executive Director of the Vermont Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance. Happy to join folks today. I'm a night owl. No question.
Hi, Drake.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see folks. I haven't been able to join one of your meetings in a while, but my name is Drake Turner. I'm the Government Relations Director at Let's Grow Kids. And I am a night owl who wishes she was an early bird. I've tried so many times to change, but I think I'm stuck.
Hello, Michael.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Bennett. I'm a program officer with the Couch Family Foundation. I guess it depends on what I'm doing. I mean, I get, with work, mornings are definitely more productive if I'm writing, editing, those kinds of things. But I'm also a musician, and that work tends to get done at night. So it depends.
Yeah. Hello, Emily.
Hi, how are you all? Happy Friday. It seems like a long post-Thanksgiving week here, but we made it. I'm Emily, the Chief of Engagement and Strategy at Let's Grow Kids. And I probably veer towards Andra. I don't know if I'm a bird anymore with 3 young kids under the age of 7. So, but I think probably early morning, because also that's when no one else is up in the house from usually like 5 a.m. to 6. So I think probably I veer on the side of morning. So happy to be here with y'all.
Hello, Samya. How are you this morning?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. My name is Soumya Mitra. I'm at Hypertherm. At work, I lead an engineering team, and I'm part of the HOPE team as well. And I lead the early childhood focus for the HOPE team at Hypertherm. And I'm glad to be part of the same team here. I think the question is, are you like an early riser or late? I joined a little late, so I'm kind of
are you an early bird or are you a night owl?
So again, I think from being a graduate student, I am a late nighter. I get a lot of creative juices flowing at night, and I used to do that really well pre-kid. Post-kids, I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. I can hardly get sleep anymore, so I'm a no bird at this point.
Great. I'm glad you're here. Hi, Sunny.
Hello, sorry to be a little late. I'm Sunny McPetras. I'm the director of the Dartmouth College Childcare Center in Hanover. And I'm a midday warbler. I don't like getting out of bed in the morning, and I'm ready to go to bed at night. So midday is my best time.
Excellent. Well, when you go to the Grand Canyon in a helicopter, you're going to have to get up early. So looking,
Yeah, but that won't happen for a while. So I have a while to practice.
Good. Hi, Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Chisholm. I am a consultant who works in rural economic and community development. Right now, I am working with 2 organizations, the Grafton Regional Development Corporation and the Hannah Grimes Center for Entrepreneurship. I am, without question, forever and forever a night owl. And that is why there are lots of careers that I considered that were simply out of reach for me, including being in the school system. So, and I have no kids, so I have not had to conform my reality to anyone else's. My husband is an early bird, and so we only have the warbler time together, Sunny, and that's probably just as well for both of us. So there you go.
Great. I see Charlotte and Tammy. I know that you're working, so I will ask if either of you want to participate, but I see that Tammy's in Thetford super busy, just didn't want to leave anybody out. Okay, so we will continue on, but we're just glad everyone is here and joining us. A lot of great work is happening.
Charlotte went on video, Joanne, so she might actually be ready to.
Oh, great. Hi, Charlotte. How are you?
Hi, yeah, I don't want to delay the meeting, but I'm Charlotte. I'm a parent, community member, probably more of a morning person, but like all the parents in the room, I think it just shifts and ebbs and flows in a lot of different ways.
Great. Glad you're here. What I've been trying to do and put in the minutes or in the agenda are the minutes from our previous meetings, because a lot is happening in each of the meetings. And it gives us an opportunity as a group to share. And somebody, sorry, keeping track of the tab. Yeah, that you guys are up first. I think I added you. So if you look at the agenda, you'll see that I put the meetings from the last, the minutes from the last meetings first. And we are going to start, we will flip it with an update from Let's Grow Kids. Drake and Emily, do you want to provide us? I know a lot of exciting things are happening just based on the workshop I went to the other day. So please share what you'd like to share with us.
Great. I think Drake's going to kick us off and share screen with the presentation. And then we also have a one pager we could share after the presentation or on Monday, whenever we get it to you, Joanne. So don't worry if there's stuff that goes too fast, and we'll try and be quick and then leave a little time for questions.
Thank you all. So I am going to just put a couple of slides up to kind of walk you through what we've been planning on for next year. Can everyone see what I got going on? I've been having weird internet issues, so please let me know if this is glitchy. But we have been gearing up for the 2023-2024 legislative biennium. I think the last time I spoke with the policy committee was or the advocacy committee was a couple of, I think it was probably during the summer when we were doing a lot of work supporting folks during the election season. And we're really excited that a whole ton of childcare champions have won races in Vermont. So we are sending amazing childcare champions to Congress, the statewide office, as well as to the House and Senate in Vermont. And this year is really an exciting one. With so many legislative retirements happening in Vermont, we have the most new legislators we've had in a really long time. We've also elected in Vermont the most women to serve in Montpelier ever, and the most women of color. And a lot of folks have run, if not entirely, partially on wanting to solve the childcare crisis. So we're gearing up for a really busy legislative biennium, and we're excited to share with you some of what we've been planning and hear any questions that folks might have. As you likely know, we have a pretty ambitious vision to create, along with so many of our partners, a Vermont where all children have equitable access to the early childhood education opportunities they need for a strong start, families are able to work and thrive, and early childhood educators are compensated and supported in line with their skills and expertise. So a lot of the work that we're planning on for next year is building off of a strong foundation that we were able to accomplish in the 2021-2022 legislative biennium. So in 2021, the legislature passed H171 or Act 45, which has established the foundation of the work that we're continuing to do together to make sure, with the bill also included investments in the system, but it established goals for the state that no family pay more than 10% of their income on childcare, that early childhood educators are well compensated and supported, and that we have a system that is well funded and has strong accountability measures. So there were investments in family affordability, investments in the early childhood education workforce, especially focused on retention and recruitment. And then the bill also put in motion 2 studies to inform the path to a fully transformed system in 2023. So here's kind of the road that we're on. Let's Grow Kids, as you know, will go away at the end of 2025. So we're in a time crunch, which is intentional. We really want to maintain urgency to solve the childcare crisis, which we know is impacting all areas of Vermont and everywhere in the country. So it's really the time for us to make those needed investments. And as you can see, 2023 is the year where we're hoping to pass a revenue bill and a number of really important policies to transform our childcare system. So I just have 2 more slides and then I'll stop talking. But what we're planning for next year has been informed by best practices nationally, work that's happening across the country and across the globe, really high quality policy, and also has been informed by our partners across Vermont. So we're really excited to work with our partners and with legislative champions in Vermont to make this a reality. And what we're working on for next year is a bill to realize the goals that we've been working on and really guiding toward that 10% affordability goal and compensating early childhood educators as 2 of our North Stars. So affordability, as I just mentioned, that 10% goal is what we're driving toward. And we have a 4-year phase in that we are planning to start year 1 of next year to continue to increase eligibility for the Child Care Financial Assistance Program, increase reimbursement rates to childcare programs, and make sure that all folks who are eligible are able to get more support to be able to afford childcare that they need. We also need to continue to support the workforce. It's a critical component of transforming our childcare system is to make sure early childhood educators are supported to stay in the field and that more folks are entering. So we want to continue to increase early childhood educator wages, benefits, and overall supports. And one example of that next year that we're working on is coming up with a grant program using some one-time dollars to support early childhood educators while we figure out what it will mean to increase wages in a more sustainable way in the future. Governance is something that's on our minds next year. There was a systems analysis.
Hi, Drake, you froze after systems analysis.
Nope. And I'm off.
There are so many things that don't work well. Oh,
You just
sorry.
froze for a second, but right after system
sorry.
analysis, but you're good. You're good now.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yes, so the systems analysis that was put in place by H171 deeply studied how our childcare system is governed currently, what is working, what isn't working, and what could work well in the future. What's the ideal state? So currently, the Vermont's childcare system has dual oversight between the Agency of Education and Agency of Human Services. There are a lot of things that could be better about the way our childcare system is governed. So the main recommendation of that study is one that we agree with. So we believe that we must create a single empowered leader in Vermont state government who's charged with overseeing Vermont's childcare system. So that's what we're going to be talking about with the legislature next year. And then we need to continue to increase access to childcare in Vermont. We estimate currently that around 8,700 children in Vermont don't have access to the childcare they need. That's a huge number. So to meet current demand, we need to continue to grow our early childhood education workforce. We need to increase the physical capacity of childcare programs to make sure that families have access to the early childhood education they need. And there's really exciting work happening in Vermont right now that's starting and continuing, hopefully continue to move the needle on that. We also have a really central lens of equity on all of these policies. So through specific programs to support families of color in our policy agenda and other people marginalized by systemic inequities in Vermont, we need to make sure that all families have access to the supports and policies that we're promoting. So we're eager to continue to have those conversations with the legislature. I think over the past few years, the Vermont legislature has had a really an increased focus on equity, which is really important to making sure that we're creating policies that aren't harmful to folks, whether intended or unintended. And then last, but certainly not least, is how do we pay for it? So we are excited to see the results of the other study that was in motion by H171, which was a childcare financing study to look at, if we're able to accomplish that 10% affordability standard, compensate early childhood educators, and do all of the components of a high quality childcare system, what does it cost? And what are the different options that the legislature has for how to fund that system? That's going to be a big lift for us. Obviously, that's going to be a large number, but we know how important it is. So that study, the final report for that study will come back to the legislature on January 15th next year. So that will really be something that we're very focused on. How can we support the legislature in making the right decision on how to fund a future childcare system in Vermont? So those are the pieces of our policy agenda for next year. There's a lot more detail that I won't go into now, but we're always happy to dig into the weeds as folks would like to. But we're really excited, and thank you so much for listening. I know, Emily, you have a couple of other things to add, right?
Yeah, I was going to wrap that up as we kind of talk about how we are engaging with legislators, especially in the Upper Valley in this legislative session. And our work I know that the Advocacy Committee has done and will continue to do. And I think there's going to be some very clear directives coming into session and things we can prepare folks to. And we're really looking to use this structure from the Upper Valley to kind of have those conversations and to really work through our advocacy stuff. We have a lot of other supporters, but we also know that this is a really strong group that legislators will look to kind of to talk about this legislation as it continues on. It will look one way as the bill comes in January, and then of course there'll be lots of different iterations and lots of things that happen during session that will require lots of constituency work in our advocacy efforts. So I just want to flag that as we're also talking about having Rebecca Holcomb come on Monday, and we're really at a moment where we want to make sure we're not ready to dive into all the legislative details. There's a bill, I think most of these legislators understand the pillars that Drake just went through, but really we're not in a moment where we're starting to talk about the bill details and everything that's in it. We really want legislators to understand the urgency. We want them to understand that the time to act is this legislative session and that it's going to require a revenue raise. And so I think we want to really make sure that as we're talking to legislators that they feel that they can hear stories from their constituents, they develop a relationship with this group, the advocacy group, and that there's folks in their districts that are gonna have open lines of communication with them as we dive into what will be a really inspiring, wonderful, fun session, and also really hard and making some really tough decisions. So it will be so important to kind of stay connected through this group, and excited to kind of have that structure already in place where it doesn't exist in other regions. So I just want to lean into that and share that, and then open to kind of any other questions people have on the specific policy, but also how we want to kind of approach a meeting with a legislator we have on Monday.
Well, Drake and Emily, I just want to celebrate all the work that everyone has done joining this in the summer. It's been just impressive to learn about all the work that has been done, and then the work that's been done in the last couple of months. And there's a lot to be proud of. So I share that with you as far as a person in the Upper Valley. It's just really great work that you're doing. One of the things that comes to mind is if you could continue to connect with our advocacy group, because I think sometimes people are ready to go, but they're not quite sure in which ways to advocate best. And I think if we're looking at New Hampshire side and Vermont side, there's going to be different pathways for advocacy. But I think if there's ways that, such as coming off of that workshop, please, go to this link, add your name, do things like that. I think that's one of the things I'm hearing from the group is we're here, we want to advocate, but how do we best do that? And also we want to keep, I think what I learned through the roundtable is making sure that our message is consistent all the way through, that, the three main points that you talked about, we consistently share those. Before I open it up to anybody else who has questions, is there anything else that you wanted to share with this group in the lens of advocacy, or as far as what's going forward that we can support the work that's happening throughout Vermont?
Yeah, just two quick things I will. Thanks for the reminder. I'll pop in the endorsement link here. If you all know employers, know folks that own companies, businesses, organizations, nonprofits, we want to make sure that everyone's signed on to endorse the campaign, especially on the Vermont side. And then of course, people can join the campaign through another link that I'll pop in there as well. So those are the two main things right now. And then yes, we'll have legislative actions throughout the session. So being ready to have your email list ready to go, where you can, like Drake will say, we need to contact these 3 legislators and we need to use the advocacy forum to do so. So right now, really preparing your neighbors, your friends, your networks, and really organizing, being growing up in the Upper Valley, I know how close knit it is, and like it's really going to be important that, you know, Senator Clarkson and, you know, Rebecca Holcomb, they hear from their neighbors, their friends, their business owners in their communities. So I think just that's what we're in the mode of preparing folks like that. And then yes, we can feed all those specific asks through the advocacy committee. But I think one important thing is making sure if you all know employers or organizations, I'll pop in this endorsement link right now.
And the
So you
other
don't have to
thing
be
I'll
in
add,
Vermont.
oh, sorry,
Sorry,
Joanne.
you don't have to be in, do you have to be in a Vermont, a person who lives in Vermont to sign up? Or if you're a business in New Hampshire that employs people who live in Vermont, that's okay to sign up as well? Like, what's the connection, to be clear?
Yes, I think it's fine if you're a business and on Vermont side, I mean, on the New Hampshire side, but you have Vermont employees, great. If you live in Vermont but own a business on the other side, like I think that's if there's a connection to Vermont there on either side, I think that's great.
Thank you. Sorry, Drake.
No, I apologize. I have a knack for picking the wrong time to talk over Zoom. I feel like I'm always around someone. The only things that I would add to that are just that Emily mentioned we have a lot of different ways that folks can get in touch with their elected officials. So we do, it can be really easy, right? We have different ways that we can have even pre-populated language and just start targeting like specific legislators. So that would be really great if folks are able, and you can edit those messages as well. But we've tried over the years to make it as easy as possible to also have that one-on-one connection. And I think for the next legislative biennium in Vermont, really building relationships and helping these new legislators navigate the childcare space is going to be so important. There are so many new folks and people who really care deeply about the issues, but who might not understand to the level that this group does what it means to make that the change that's needed. So I think building relationships, doing that education of new legislators is so important, because we have a citizen legislature in Vermont, and folks really are at a disadvantage. They don't have the resources that folks do in other states. So we're such an important resource, and you're such an important resource to them. So any way that we can, facilitate and make that an easier lift, we're happy to do. But I think especially for the Upper Valley, that's going to be critical next year. There are a lot of new folks.
Wonderful. Any other comments, questions, or thoughts to share on this topic? Presentation was really succinct and helpful. So thank you for sharing that. Amy.
I have kind of a stingy question. I know huge part of this figuring out how much it's going to cost is the wage piece. Is the crosswalking or the aligning or the rubric of pay done, or is that part of this phase of work?
So I think we have our own internal, estimates that we've done, but I do believe the financing study will incorporate the wage piece. It's following the goals that were laid out in H171. So one of them was like the two drivers, right, are really affordability for families. So increasing CCFAP in Vermont to be a near universal resource, and also the compensation and benefits for early educators. So we're imagining, and we don't know what it's going to be yet. But I imagine those are going to be the two kind of top lines of that analysis.
Allison.
Thanks. Super great presentation. I will say that my first thought about sort of the accessibility, equity, and sustainability triangle is a reference back to an old, business school thing where it was like quick, high quality, or cheap, pick two, because you can't have all three. Like they're mutually exclusive. And so I'm interested. I liked the language that Emily used about there's urgency, we have to act now, and it will require revenue raise. It's going to be hard. Like there is going to be pain involved. It's going to shift the pain from who's feeling it now to others. And I think that's going to be, so I'm impressed that you guys are just tackling that head on. I'm wondering around the Upper Valley, how much of this is sort of, you named 8,700 kids without access. So that's, the accessibility question. I'm curious if you have any kind of regional sense of things, what is most critical in the Upper Valley? Is it less of an accessibility question and more of an equity question? Is it more of a sustainability question? Are there any things that are sort of specific to our region that we should be equipped to address? Because I think, you know, there's always that sense on both sides of the river that there are centers of the state where decisions get made, and then we're not necessarily the drivers of those decisions. So what's good for Burlington is not necessarily good for the Upper Valley. What's good, likewise, Manchester, Concord, not necessarily good for the Upper Valley. So curious if there's any of that level of specificity, and we should be advised about that.
I love that question. I'm going to do my best to answer it. I think it might be something that we follow up with you on if and looking at the Upper Valley stuff. What I would say is the issues that we see in Vermont are over, like at the 30,000 foot level, not really isolated to certain regions, right? Kind of no matter where you live in Vermont, childcare is too expensive. Early childhood educators aren't making enough. There's not enough access to the type of care that folks need. So by coming up with a sort of a statewide solution that also retains choice in different regions of the state, we're really hoping that we can advance equity, because for this system to really work for Vermonters, it needs to be one where no matter where you live in Vermont, you have a choice of the type of program that works for you and your family, right? We have a mixed delivery system. So there are center-based programs, you know, home providers, programs in schools, nonprofit and for-profit. There needs to be that mix so that families can make the choice that's right for them. And so that all regions of the state are really reflected in that. So Allison, I can take a look at some of our more regionally specific data about what's happening in different counties, but my prediction would be that the access in Windsor County really may not be so starkly different from what's happening in Addison County. Just because we know across the state, this is a system where the funding model doesn't work. So kind of no matter where you are, it's really hard to start a program. It's really hard to be an early educator. It's really hard to find a slot for your child and to pay for it. So we're just really hopeful that by tackling it as a state, we can make sure that all regions are getting their needs met.
I think if I might, Drake, to build on that and to push it in a slightly different direction, I think the thing that is unique region to region is what committees are your legislators on? And so what aspect of this are they looking at? What piece are they focused on in their committee? And therefore, what would Drake and the team and Emily and the team at LGK suggest? And I see that so Janet's here as well from Vermont AYC. So I want to honor the fact that they're part of this as well. So what would the team say in the education committee? This is the message right now, or in the Ways and Means committee, this is the message right now. So it isn't so much that there's a regional message because there's something about your part of the state that's important, as Drake says, that's pretty much uniform. It's what's happening on the committees that your folks are on that we would want to stress. And that's messaging that you would get directly from Drake and Emily and Janet and the rest of the folks at LGK and Vermont AYC. And we can unpack that if you want, but that's another way of looking at this.
Yeah, that's a great point, Matt. So we'll know in January where folks are assigned for committees, and then that can be really a great strategic focus for this group is where are the Upper Valley folks sitting, and how can we make sure that they're able to be strategic partners and tell the story of what's happening in the Upper Valley to be really effective.
So a few things, there's some great links in the chat that have been added. So if you're interested, please feel free to copy and paste those so that you have them. They'll also be in the minutes. And Jenna, I apologize that you didn't get an agenda directly. I will make sure after the meeting that I add you to the advocacy group. If you would introduce yourself, and we'd love to hear an update. Thanks for being
everybody.
here.
Sure. Hi there. Hi, I'm Janet McLaughlin, and I am the Executive Director of the Vermont Association for the Education of Young Children. We are the largest professional association of early childhood educators in the state, and we are of Vermont specifically versus New Hampshire. And we are the state affiliate of the National Association for the Education of Young Children. one thing that we do in Vermont is we do a lot around building the, diverse, dynamic, well-prepared, well-resourced early childhood education profession that we know is needed to achieve the goals that, Drake and Emily laid out for you and that I know you have for your own communities. And so Joanne, I want to make sure I'm offering the right information here. So I think that I was invited to share some of the workforce development programs that Vermont EUIC is offering and sort of how we're approaching this in Vermont, the statewide resources that can be available to programs that are operating on the Vermont side, and that also may have some connections to what's happening in New Hampshire as well. Is that the right thing?
Yes, because this is a combined advocacy and steering committee. So bringing it to this level would be very helpful. And we can also circle it back around to our actual workforce committee. And then after this, what I'll probably do is jump into the conversation about what we want to talk about with Rebecca Holcomb. And then if there's time left, go back and have updates from previous meetings. So yeah, that would be great. Did you have something?
So if that's right, if I'm in the wrong meeting, you just tell me, Joanne. I just thought that, okay. I thought that this was the time I was asked to come. So I will share a quick slide. Oh, sorry, I didn't hit the right button here. If that okay for me to do that? I think I can. I think the thing that I wanted to mention as we think about early childhood education and the need for to support and resource and recruit more and more really skilled early childhood educators, it's to really think about things within sort of a workforce development continuum, right? It's what every profession uses, every field and profession is using. And so there are, and so Vermont, has started to fill in our continuum for workforce development a little bit more, and Vermont EUIC offers some specific efforts. And so I think, for any profession, again, it sort of starts with that career awareness and exploration. And I'll, Vermont EUIC sees our role as helping do some of that outreach. We'd love to be able to partner to do more, or to partner in terms of providing resources and materials for other people that want to do their own outreach. But again, it's getting to all of the research on career aspirations, right, points to getting to kids when they are in like 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, right? It's not like talking to 12th graders, right? It's like early on as people are considering whether or not they want to do what they want to do with high school, what they want to pursue in college. So we have some early childhood education materials on our website around early childhood education careers. We have physical handouts that are really nice and modern that we can share. We also have a pre-apprenticeship program for high school career and technical students. It's not active at this moment in the Upper Valley. Again, this question again, if we want to build a pipeline, you have to start with high schoolers. That is what nurses are doing. That is what, you know what I mean? Like that is what, like every, that's what other fields are doing. And so we have to figure out how we are having a broad, creating the funnel, right? And that means broad outreach at the beginning of it. And so the pre-apprenticeship program, which does have funding from the Department of Labor right now, it is for students that are within their CTE centers, and it includes a paid internship and a paid college course, and the hours that are worked could then transfer into an official registered apprenticeship program. So this is a great model that's been successful in other parts of the state that we could talk about how to build in the Upper Valley. In terms of career preparation, right? We know there's a lot of interest amongst for people in terms of getting early childhood education degrees. Right now, at the Community College of Vermont, ECE is their largest sort of concentration. You know, some of those people are degree students, some of those are non-degree students, but it really is their largest program right now because early childhood educators are interested in getting those credentials and getting their degrees. Even if they started in the field without training, they're recognizing that to be able to support kids and families the way that they want to, they need that training. So again, we offered a registered early childhood education apprenticeship program. Again, that covers the cost of college courses, that offers a stipend for a mentor to provide on-the-job training and observations. So it's a really supportive pathway for people that are working towards their childcare certificate in the state of Vermont right now. There also are a couple other programs that have been that have been supported in the legislature, and again that are built into some of the legislative advocacy agenda that the coalition's put together. There are scholarships available through, again, in Vermont, it's through the Vermont State Student Assistance Corporation through VSAC for people that are wanting to enter the field. And also there's been, there's a lot of money at CCV and Vermont State colleges for tuition overall, some for specific occupations that can benefit people. Right now, like one of the key messages is that if you want to enter early childhood education, or you're already working in early childhood education and you want to get a college degree, like it can be paid for you in Vermont. Like it is, like there are so many opportunities. Like this is an amazing time to join the field because coursework, certificates, on up through, bachelor's degrees, teacher licensure, there's a myriad of opportunities to pay for that. There are, in terms of recruitment, again, there's been the stabilization grants that many programs on the Vermont side are using. Right now there's and then right now there's an additional program that they're working on for bonuses for retention with that CDD is running. That is a little tricky, but it is money directly to early childhood educators as those are being released to programs. And then the next one that I have on here is around relocation incentive grants for Vermont. And I think the point of this one is really that there are statewide programs that could be used by early childhood education programs even though they weren't necessarily designed specifically. So an example of that is this work relocation grant that we have in Vermont that I do know has supported some early childhood educators. And I think it is, and I think part of the trick though, right, is there's so many, with our mixed delivery system, there are so many different early childhood education employers in the state. And in the Upper Valley more broadly. And they don't all have their own HR. I know you've already talked about that. I know Amy has done some good work in terms of thinking about how to fill that gap. But one example is there's not an HR person who's keeping an eye on the fact that like, oh, this new person, they're applying from out of state. Let me make sure they know about this program. On the retention side, we do have a student loan repayment program right now. Vermont EYC, earned the contract and began implementing that program this past summer. It is for people who have working directly in the field in community-based settings in private or nonprofit programs. And they're folks who have more recently earned a degree. They have to have earned their degree in the last 5 years. But that has been, for the people who are enrolled, it's been there, we're hearing how helpful this is for them in terms of just covering their bills, to know that that's one bill that's covered for them for now. It has definitely been a tricky time to do this with federal student loan forbearance, as well as all the discussion obviously right now about student loan forgiveness, and people are trying to figure out how to administer this program in this very noisy environment around student loans is a little tricky. But we're also hopeful that the next legislative session that we can actually really open up the requirements associated with this program and be able to offer this, more broadly as a support for those early childhood educators who have chosen to make the investment in their, in their careers, in their professional practice by taking out student loans, maybe even before some other programs were available to be able to cover those costs for them. I talked about the stabilization incentives. And then on the career development side, from Vermont, what we have is we've got the Teach Early Childhood Scholarship Program. I think it's in New Hampshire. I cannot as well. It is in New Hampshire as well. And I can't remember who. I think it's maybe Childcare Aware that administers it. But again, it's for full-time staff, for people who are working 30 hours or more within programs, who are pursuing apprenticeship, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, teacher licensure. And, you know, we've doubled enrollment in that program in Vermont. Because we did some adjustments with COVID, and that's allowed to reduce some barriers to participation in the program, got rid of co-pays on the tuition side. And so I think that program's even more user-friendly for both the educators and for their employers than it was before. We host an annual professional development conference, and we also manage some professional development grants and bonuses for the state of Vermont. And that includes things like, you know, tuition grants. There's, you know, $1,000 a semester can be, you know, tuition grant, you know, is one of the options, and that we administer those. You can apply through those. So there are a lot, I guess. So like and then the final thing on this is that through CCB, there's Northern Lights, which does provide, you know, professional development advising and resources. So the big picture I wanted to paint sort of is of both, you know, there are a plethora of resources. Sometimes that can feel confusing. It is actually because these programs are all designed to meet people at different places within the career, within their career continuum, career continuum, and with what we see, you know, overall as what we know is sort of the workforce development scheme. We know that there still are holes. And so I think there's definitely really interesting conversation about what are the remaining holes that need to be filled. But again, as you guys are talking about what to do in the Upper Valley, I hope that you know, we're happy to be an active partner and help consider, like, how do we leverage some of these existing programs to support the work you're doing, or think about what are the new programs that need to be developed. So I want to share just one other thing, just super quickly with you. Just so you guys can see it and know that it exists. And this is one of our, like, the brochure that we have around EC careers. And, you know, we've got hard copies. If people are in venues where this is helpful for you to have, we'd be happy to send some to you. But, you know, it's designed to be attractive to people, to young people. And, you know, a broader, you know, more diverse group of folks that we want to be attracting into this field. And then we also have on our website have like a EC careers that talks about what are all the different kinds of jobs you can have in the field, right? It's not just only, you know, a classroom, you know, toddler teacher only, right? That you can, you know, maybe you want to do that for some time, but maybe later on you want to be a business owner yourself. Maybe you want to become a special educator. Maybe you want to move into be a consultant or be so there's a bunch of different, so it sort of lays out the fact that, like, this is not, we want to, like, counter the idea that this is somehow a dead end profession, but actually it's something that you can do. And then finally, I would just offer that Tammy Hazlitt in this group is also an amazing resource. She's part of our Advancing as a Profession task force. And it's a group of educators who have been really looking at how do we create a coherent system to recognize and compensate early childhood educators in the state, and in the country. And the work that team's been doing is amazing, and would love to at some point, you know, share that with you as well.
Janet, that was so helpful. Thank you very much.
Got a lot of words in there.
No, it was great. Any questions about that? It links a lot with Amy's philosophy that you've been sharing with Michael in my mind, which is great. Kind of channeling that same kind of thought, getting people into the pipeline and keeping them there seems really important. Allison?
I'm your question person, I guess. Janet, two questions I have for you. Are the pre-apprentice and apprenticeship programs at all accessible by adult learners? Because I know the CTE offerings often include specific offerings for adult learners. And I know that everybody's competing for the 10th grader there aren't enough 10th graders to go around in terms of our workforce needs. And so I know that some of the stuff that Amy and her team have done is specifically targeted at people entering or changing professions or trying to re-enter the workforce in after gaps or those kinds of things. So I'm curious if those programs that are accessible only at the CTE centers are accessible for adults.
Yeah, so the pre-apprenticeship program is specifically for high school students right now. Our hope is that we can design sort of a pre-apprenticeship program for adults. We do actually have a congressionally directed spending request in via Senator Leahy's office. You know, and so that's, you know, he's submitted it in his budget, right? So if we get a federal budget, there's going to be some money to, you know, this, he said that this is at the top of his, you know, of his list. So it's very likely that we'd have some money to work on building what the adults sort of version of a pre-apprenticeship program would look like in partnership with CTE centers in the state. But the Registered Early Childhood Education Apprenticeship Program, that program is designed for adults. So that program is folks who are entering the field and typically haven't had any formal training. And so this is designed, like I said, to get them that supportive, you know, as a supported experience that includes on-the-job training with an experienced mentor, as well as college level coursework for them to really get anchored in the field as a professional.
And then the second just follow-on question I had, or it's I guess a related question, is in the advancing the profession work and those kinds of things. I mean, I know that one of the challenges in the Upper Valley in particular, because there's so much cross river workforce, is the idea of the regulatory framework for who qualifies, you know, what educational attainment is required or what work experience is required, and the distinctive. And I know that at the national level, they're working on rationalizing credentials and doing that. And I'm sort of wondering how that is landing in Vermont, if it is landing in Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tammy, feel free to jump in anytime if you'd rather be the lead speaker on this one. But this is absolutely built off of the unifying framework for the early childhood education profession that was put together by, you know, 20 to 30 national early childhood groups, NACCE as sort of the home of that. So that's what the work has been happening in Vermont, where we've had over the last 4 years, we've really had a really active discussion with early childhood educators in the state to say, do you want to, you know, what are you interested in having us explore aligning with the unifying framework, which would establish early childhood education as a profession, sort of similar to nursing, with an individual professional license, you know, that moves you from that entry level credential to sort of an AA level credential to a bachelor's degree level credential. Because right now, a lot of our systems are designed to make up for the fact that the workforce is not prepared, or to make up for the fact that there's not a, again, a lot of the regulatory framework, right, is there to substitute for the fact that there's not actually a professional framework. And then that results in a lot of confusion across states. Absolutely. So if we were able to create, you know, so that's what we are, this group of educators across, you know, that Tammy's a part of, but has engaged over 2,000 educators across Vermont in active conversations about what it would look like. And, you know, really have gone through each element of it to come to consensus and say, yes, we want to move forward in creating a recognized profession in Vermont. So that will be we have some model legislation that the task force is going to be really looking on, and then looking at next spring and bringing out, you know, to the field more specifically, and then, you know, hoping to introduce it in the January 24 legislative session.
And so that just brings up the question, Emily and Drake, is that factored in to your legislative agenda when we start talking about the wages and pay and all of that? Is that unifying framework assumed or embedded or that kind of stuff?
Janet, I feel like you can speak to this, and I can chime in too. We've
Okay.
definitely been discussing it between our two organizations.
Yes, it's definitely, it's absolutely it is embedded. And and in fact, like one of the things that the task force did was work on some of like sort of saying like, if these are the credentials, then what are the minimum compensation standards that need to be associated with that? That research has then been, given to the folks who are doing the study on financing to say, can you use these as the compensation standards that educators in Vermont are saying seem fair to them? And then it is sort of, it is, and then all of the investments around workforce development are really designed to get to a place where we can implement this and have a transitional system where we feel like we're not changing the rules on people before the supports are in place, right? We know we need to have a really supportive, really supportive bridge to the new system.
And I would just add, we're taking the lead, or letting the Advancing as the Profession Task Force take the lead on this, and then making sure that our policy agenda reflects where that work is. So in 2023, our focus is on continuing to support the student loan repayment support program, teach funding, more of the pre-apprenticeship programs, and then also we're imagining some one-time funds to support like a grant program for early childhood educators to supplement their wages while the work that's happening to do that in sort of the full compensation standards happens, because we don't believe that will be ready in 2023. That's probably work that will happen in 2024.
Soumya, I see your hand raised.
We need to support early educators now because they need it now.
Soumya, I see your hand raised. Did you want to add to the discussion, or did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Oh, that would just be my marker. Sorry about that. I wanted you to know that Emily and Andrea noted that they have to jump off at 1, and in the chat, Andrea wrote, it seems like there's so much gelling from so many different directions. Really great to hear. And woohoo women in legislative positions. So she added that to the chat. There's also a great segue, Janet. Thank you so much. And for everyone who's presenting today, it's awesome to see it all coming together. You mentioned Tammy, and I did a shout out to Tammy, who actually made the connection to have Rebecca come to the meeting on Monday. So I'm greatly appreciative of that. I welcome Ruth, and I see that Sarah Kay is hopping on as well, which is awesome. And I would put this to Tammy if you're able to speak, but I also know that you're always with little ones. And I'm wondering, as the group, what are you envisioning as far as the conversation with Rebecca? What does that look like? How can I facilitate it? I'm wondering, is the goal for today to maybe do bullet points that we want to share with her about equity, accessibility, and sustainability, since that seems to be the triangle that's already out there? What are people's thoughts about that? So we have, one of the things Rebecca noted was, kind of, I'm there to listen, so please be prepared to share the information that you want me to bring further along. So that's kind of the goal of today's meeting. Any thoughts about that? Have people been in a meeting like that before and have a better sense of the fluidity and the conversation? That's not an experience I've had yet. So I just want to make sure that I'm facilitating appropriately and we're using this next half hour as best as we can.
Joanne, you may not be able to see this, but Sarah Kobalinski has her hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Sarah. Welcome.
Hi there. Hi there. Jumping in sort of into the middle of this. Sorry, I needed to be late today. Just wanted people to keep in mind that Rebecca has just spent the last couple of years leading the research project and the writing for the Norwich Town Plan around childcare. So she's made a choice to really steep herself deeply already in this issue. And she had participated in the symposium a year ago. And so I think that hearing from her also about what lens she particularly wants to bring into the legislature with her would be helpful for us to know, and then perhaps a dialogue could ensue from that. But I think that recognizing her expertise from that specific local ground level work that she's done recently, in addition to the perspective she's had about the governance of early care and education in Vermont from when she was Secretary of Education, is important to do as a starting point.
Terrific, great. Other people have ideas? Tammy, when you were envisioning Rebecca coming, what were you picturing the conversation to look like?
I just wanted to get a better idea of what her position is on the whole scope of the issues that we're trying to address. And again, the committee, what committee is she going to be on? Is she going to be on one that works directly to address these issues? And if anybody's interested, I'm pretty sure I have the link to the Norwich study. I can post it in the chat if anybody wants it.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
And I also note Janet has to hop off. Thank you, Janet. And she's added a link to their website and their careers page. Thanks, Janet. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, maybe she could even give us a summary too of what the end result was of their study. That I think that would be important for everyone to know why they made the decisions that they did.
Was their study specific in Norwich to ECE, or was it Norwich as a community and then they decided what are their main key things to focus on?
They actually worked with families there was a survey that was sent out. They also sent out surveys to local ECE providers. I happen to live on the pretty close to the Norwich line, and so they actually included me in that survey as well. And that's why I have a copy of it, because I wanted to see the results myself.
Okay.
And they even reached out across state lines as far as who they were, interviewing, because I participated in that as well.
What I'm trying to pull up while we're brainstorming, and I'm taking notes that I will share with Rebecca in advance, is Rebecca's email between us, and us meaning Tammy and myself, because she did note something that she was potentially hoping that we would do to frame the conversation, which is why I put time in this meeting to make sure that we are on the same page in talking with her, and that it was as productive as it can be. Rebecca.
I don't remember the exact thing, but I think I was on the email, Joanne. I think she probably wants to understand a little more of the pillars. So I do think, Drake, I'll leave it to you because you interact with legislators in the most close way, but I don't know if we want to send something in advance, or like we definitely want to make sure that she understands the 5 of the pillars that Drake just went through, because I do think legislators are coming, they got a lot of information coming at them right now with from lots of different industries and across topic areas. So I think really understanding, having that for her would be great. And then really elevating that piece. I don't know that she's going to know what committee she's on, but I think certainly it would be great kind of education point for her about these 5 or, whatever the 5 or 6 things that Drake had just laid out. But Drake, you might have a better idea of how to make sure prepared for this conversation.
Yeah, I'm happy to share if it's helpful, and tell me if you don't want it, but the slides that I shared do have, for our policy agenda, those 5 buckets of affordability, support for early educators, governance, I guess it's 6, but maybe it could be whittled down, and then accessibility, equity, and sustainability. I think what Brooke put in the chat is a great point. In any conversation that we're having with legislators, I think we always want to let them know that we have their backs for this, to share that, this is a problem. She understands the problem, as well as anyone does, but that this is something that Vermonters all across the Upper Valley and all across Vermont care about, and that this is the time to solve it. That it's going to be, a big number. There's going to be a lot to do, but that we have her back and we're ready to support her to do that work Vermonters and for her constituents. And I think Joanne, you mentioned that she wants to hear from you all and listen, which is great. But I think any way you can ask really intentional questions of legislators about, what do you think of this? Do you have any recommendations? What are you thinking of? I've heard a couple people mention committee assignments. It would be great to know what's on her mind of where she would maybe want to be next year. Obviously, that's not a decision that she gets to make, but it would be great to hear from her how she wants to engage with this group also moving forward. Like, how can you all stay in touch with her as the session gets underway is great as well. And then also sharing, I think, personal stories is really important for all legislators. There's a lot of data. It's really important to have strategy that's informed by best practices and data, but the stories are often what bring these issues to life for elected officials. And I don't know, Matt, do you have any thoughts about this? You're a good strategic.
Yeah, thanks for passing the stick along. As those of you who've worked with me in the past know, I tend to have the worrying, negative, pessimistic angle on things. Sorry, poorly timed phone ringing. Please ignore that. I guess what I would say is that it's important to keep in mind that Representative-elect Holcomb is a relatively complicated person with a relatively complicated past, and has in the past taken some very strong positions on various issues that the early childhood community in general and the early childhood education community in particular would have an opinion on. There's a range of opinion in terms of the mixed delivery system, in terms of governance. And so, I don't want to dampen anyone's enthusiasm about connecting with a legislator. It's always a legislative elect. It's always a good thing. I guess I would just suggest proceed with some caution and encourage her to talk and take note of what she says. But I think that Drake's point is well taken, that at the end of the day, without necessarily saying that you all are going to agree with everything that she says or every position she takes, because you won't, I think you want to give her a sense that there's an open line of communication, some version of we have your back. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying we have your back, because that makes it sound like whatever you say, Rebecca, we'll support you. I mean, you don't want to have the conversation be like that. But you definitely want to have it at the end be a sense of a good trading of ideas, a good sharing of information, open line of communication. I mean, I think that's really important and will come across very positively. So I don't want to be too negative, but for those of you who play the inside baseball game, this is one of the legislators that those of us who are doing lobbying look at and go, well, this will be interesting. So I think that's important context for you all as you go into your conversation. Again, I don't want to be negative, don't want to scare people, but is it someone with complications?
Matt and I can do a good cop, bad cop pretty well. So I appreciate that. But I would also say, so a lot of times this period of time, right after folks have been elected, everyone's reaching out to them on all of the issues. And during campaigns, candidates are like, yes, I care about everything and everything is great. And then there's this flip that happens where I think it becomes real that there are so many needs. And so this is the period of time where elected officials start to not the walk back, but they start to try to manage expectations. So if that, all that just to say, if that happens, it probably will happen. That's no big deal. That's what they're doing to everyone. So I do think that positivity is really important, and communicating to her that there is a really strong movement behind making change on childcare in 2023 is important. So maybe not we've got your back, but we're here to support the work of the legislature on childcare in 2023, and we're ready to do that is important.
Totally.
And there was a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. There's a question in the chat about why she's attending the workforce and recruitment models, facilities models meetings because of her schedule. And I wrote several times that I'm inviting anyone who's part of the EC initiative to attend and participate in that conversation. But the way that it landed, I wanted to use today, because this is the Advocacy Steering Committee, to make sure that I'm framing the conversation, sharing it with Rebecca in advance, and then anyone who wants to attend the meeting on Monday is more than welcome to.
I think this raises some interesting questions that the sort of, we've got your back, and I like the rephrasing. There's a good reason that you guys are professionals at this, right? Like making sure that, like, you know, that we can have, but I am sort of curious about, you know, in our North Star, we talk about facilitating and all of that, not necessarily about supporting a point of view, right? And so if we are in fact supporting a point of view, I don't have objections to that, but I think that that's something that we need to think about in any of these conversations with legislators or others around sort of what does it mean to, you know, are we in essence giving endorsements to particular solution sets, right? Or is the Vital Communities initiative stepping back from the endorsement side of things and instead, like you say, we're the language, I just wrote this down, Drake, was we're supporting the work of the legislature. So we're supporting the work of Let's Grow Kids and the Vermont Association for the Education of Young Children and in their efforts to do that. And we are, I mean, I think we have gone out for letters of support for specific things. But I don't know that we as a steering committee have necessarily grappled with, well, we're going to support X, but we're not going to support Y. I think we've kind of gone with we're supporting that three-pronged. I'm interested, you point that sort of there were actually 6 pillars to yours, and I kind of latched on to 3 of them, because I think those are the 3 that we've talked a lot about. But anyway, you understand my question. It's more to the steering committee, but it really influences how we talk with Rebecca or anybody else about what this initiative at Vital Communities is about and what they can expect from politicians about it. Is it just a facilitated conversation so they can hear from their constituencies and talk to their constituencies? Or is it we have a point of view and we're staking with this, right?
Well, I think if you go back to the history, Tammy was very proactive in reaching out to the legislators to celebrate that they were elected into place and make a connection. So then Rebecca got connected through Tammy to this group. And so it's an opportunity for this group to share kind of what our North Stars are as a New Hampshire and Vermont organization, and maybe allow her to know that we are here and the work that we are doing. I'm sure she's aware of the work of Let's Grow Kids and others, but she might not be aware of this group. And I think it would be interesting to just hear her perspective. And I do think from facilitating the meetings, we have been looking at how can we constructively support and balance. And she might down the pipe give us some suggestions to collectively support that doesn't go into the politics that you were talking about, Allison, but do match kind of the North Stars that we have that you represented. One of the things that I plan to do in writing kind of a note to her in advance is framing what we agreed to as the work of this initiative. So she has that, and she kind of has a sense of the work groups and where we're heading. Based on the conversation today, I'm going to, to try to summarize what I've captured, obviously be grateful for her time. But some of the things that came out are, what lens does she want to bring? We know that she has expertise. So kind of what is her position? And she might not know yet what committee she'll be on. Maybe she could talk to us a bit about the Norwich study in advance. Drake, I will send her the presentation, which was great, that was shared today. And if you've left, I will find you or Emily to get that. We also talked about what her focus might be next year, which might change a little bit over time, as Matt described. But I think the key is how can we stay in touch that whole part of how can we stay in touch, engaged, be aware of what's happening. And today was Vermont based, but Rebecca from New Futures will be coming to a January meeting. So hopefully you will hear from New Hampshire. Adele hasn't been able to attend meetings. I haven't heard much about the omnibus at all. Sean continues to connect with Susan Prentice, and I know her last name is Almy. Is it Susan Almy? Perhaps on that side about the omnibus coming through. So it just happened to be today. People are asking, why is this so Vermont? It just happened to be the flow of today. Is there anything else? I'm just cognizant of time. It's 1:15 when I pull this together that people would like to ask or learn or share.
I would just kind of back to Allison's question. I think our big role is around education and going out to Rebecca and letting her know this coalition exists. There's a group of stakeholders that, it's business leaders, providers, et cetera, in the community coming together around this issue. And it's a priority for us. And I think that's kind of what I mean about political coverage. Like, if she knows there's this coalition happening and we're focused on this, that's going to signal to her that she can be out front on this topic too. And there's a group that's aligned. And we don't have to say like, we support X, Y, and Z, but keeping it broad about early childhood education and access to care and high quality care, et cetera.
Great.
So
that's really helpful.
I wanted to say, Janet mentioned that I'm on the Advancing the Profession task force. One of the things that we've come up with, it's kind of our slogan, is nothing about us without us. Basically, what that means is that we don't make any decisions without input from our peers. And Let's Grow Kids actually does that as well. They may not carry that slogan, but they work with us. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we can relay that message to Rebecca. I mean, Rebecca's already said to me, I may run some legislative ideas by you, but maybe it doesn't have to be just me. Maybe it can be this group. So how do we get that message across that we're offering ourselves up in that way? And can we offer ourselves up in that way, I guess, is another question. I mean, I know I'm thinking grand thoughts, but I don't know what the rest of the group is feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think just doing what you're doing and introducing yourself is you're offering yourself up as a resource and making that point when you're with her, saying we're available, like you have the ear of the providers, use me, I'm a resource to you, and allow her to reach out and connect at any point, or when she's looking for information.
Yeah, Tammy, I think that's really important because it also puts it on her to be seeking input from her constituents, right? Because a lot of times that can be a step that is missed by some folks. So to share, not only is this a group that's really focused on this issue and wants to stay in touch with her, but you also have deep connections in the community with folks who are experts and doing the work and on the ground. And offering that up as a resource is really smart because it also almost sets a really positive expectation that when she is pursuing legislative goals or ideas, that she has this resource that's ready and willing to work with her.
And I'd add one additional point, a smaller bit of spice that you can add to I think Drake's excellent point and what she talks about referencing these connections. I think you also want to reference your connections to the statewide conversation. That you want to reference the fact that you all do have these connections to Drake and LGK and Vermont AYC, and you can mention the Alliance if you want, but mentioning that you are aware of the statewide conversation, you're plugged into the statewide conversation, you're talking to those people, reminds them, the legislator, that, oh, that's right, these aren't just naive people off in the middle of nowhere. They're part of a sophisticated conversation that I want to access and be a part of in a positive way. So I'm not suggesting you name drop or you sort of flaunt it, but finding an opportunity just to note that you're aware of the larger conversation. Tammy, your leading role in statewide conversation, that helps provide that full context and framing that helps the legislator realize that they're talking to people who are plugged in, both, as Drake points out, to the community and to community assets and community knowledge, but also to the statewide network that is part of this conversation that's rather complex.
Thanks, Matt. Other thoughts?
I want to thank Tammy and Ruth for participating on this call, and Sunny too. I think that I love that slogan, Tammy, and I think that the interesting part is the difficulty involving providers is because you guys are always at work. and so we are counting on people who are already beleaguered, is I guess a fair way to say it, already really underground, to offer up yet one more piece of yourselves. And so I am just really grateful for that participation, because that's what I want to be about, is nothing about you without you. But I often feel a little guilty asking for you because I already feel like you're giving so much. And so I'm so grateful that you are participating. And Amy, I'm looking, I should have Amy in that box too. I'm thinking about the Vermont side right now, but Amy and Sunny are, and Amy represents both sides. But the providers in the trenches, we need to hear from you, and yet it's hard, and it's hard on you in particular. So I'm very grateful.
Agreed. Thank you for sharing that, Allison. Any other thoughts? Other business? I did add the minutes, so we won't do updates necessarily, but if you're interested in what the conversations are, and they've all been great, you'll see those listed right at the top of the agenda. So feel free at your own leisure, which I know you don't have a lot of, but if you are interested, please hop onto that. We will circle back to the week of the young child, April 2nd to 8th, because believe it or not, it's going to come up pretty fast. So we should probably be talking about that in January and February to set up for that. Any other business for today? Very solid and exciting meeting. I really appreciate everyone's input and preparation. Our next meeting dates, we split back out. So Advocacy Workgroup will be Friday, December 9th. That one is at 9:30. And then the next steering committee will be Friday, December 16th from 12 to 1:30. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. It's gorgeous out here. Take care. See you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.